Welcome to Caleb Can't Read. I'm Jordan Rabel.
I'm Caleb Terrence.
Alright, so first thing that I've got to mention, I forgot to say at top of the last episode, I guess we just ran with it, but I understand that there is a movement going on, and especially in podcasting, to call anyone who does, night work, that kind of thing, sex work, which I'm totally for, and I totally understand it. However, just calling somebody a sex worker, two guys out of Portland, Oregon, we're not going to necessarily know what that means. If somebody tells us that they're into sex work, are you a prostitute? Are you in porn? Do you have just an OnlyFans? Are you a stripper? Do you work in one of those like little mirrored jerk-off
Oh, what do
shacks?
you do? I do construction. What exactly? Just construction.
Yeah, it's
No.
We're just gonna need to narrow things down because we talked about it last episode. We're gonna be talking about this episode. I don't foresee it not being mentioned in any episode really. Authors like prostitutes.
Is it going to be in every episode?
Practically.
All right, we'll see. Let's do it.
All right. Well, let's begin, shall we?
Uh-huh.
Shuji Tsushima was born June 19th, 1909 in Kannagi, Japan, a place known for its horrible winters and fierce storms. His father was a wealthy landowner and a member of the Diet, the Japanese legislative portion of the government, during the Meiji era, which lasted from 1868 to 1912. At the time of Shinji's birth, he was the 10th of 11 children and the 8th surviving child in the family. His father had just finished construction on the Tsushima mansion about 2 years earlier, which would go on to house around 30 family members. On Shinji's father's side was Genomon Matsuki, who came from a family which held on to very feudal traditions. This meant that as long as the oldest son was around to basically inherit the family business, the family home, and everything else, then the rest of the kids should just leave as soon as they were old enough to get a job. And unfortunately for Genomon, he was not the oldest. On Shinji's mother's side was the Tsushima family, who began as peasants way back in the day, with Shuji's great-grandfather becoming a moneylender, which his son took over once he was of age. As far as I could tell, it sounded like they must have held on to the same traditions as the Matsuki family, because when grandfather Tsushima didn't bear any sons, he started looking for a man to marry his eldest daughter, Tane, and just inherit the Tsushima family business of moneylending. And the man to marry Tane was Genomon. And now that Genomon was one of the wealthiest landowners in his prefecture, he was quickly offered membership to a seat on the Diet. Shuji's father was absent due to work because of this, and his mother was always ill, so Shuji was raised mostly by maids and butlers. Haven't we all been, though?
Mm-hmm.
On March 4th, 1923, a month before Shuji would enter high school, his father Genomon died of lung cancer. He would later go on to enter the literature department at Hiroki University in 1927 and contribute towards his college newspaper. He was very interested in writing and even made a little literature zine with his friends. Did you ever make any kind of fan thing with your friends?
You mean like a written thing?
Yeah, like...
I can't fucking read, Jordan.
Well, I mean, like, I had a thing with my friends where we, like, fucking made a... we pretty much just copied everything from, like, a gaming magazine and, like, put in our own fucking game advertisements in there and shit. It was very cute. I was a very cute child.
I think the only thing that I browsed through when I was in school was the Portland Mercury, and that was just for the pictures in the back.
Oh, the sex work.
Yes.
So Shuji's affinity for writing came to a halt when his favorite writer, Ryunosuke Akutagawa, committed suicide via barbitol overdose in 1927. He died at age 35 for fear of inheriting his mother's mental illness.
Wait, one more time. What's Barbitol? Because I'm picturing Barbasol. There's no way that's it.
The shaving cream?
Yeah. And what's Barbitol?
It's a hard way to go, man.
Don't fuck with me. What the fuck is Barbitol?
That wasn't Cool Whip. No, it's barbiturates.
Right.
Uppers, downers, zingers, zaggers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly, I never got into pills too much. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's
I just know what barbiturates are.
All right.
I mean, that's...
I'm surprised I didn't.
Well, we could go do it after this. We can go find out.
Yeah, I was I was thinking in my head, I was like, how the fuck with the barbasol can... I mean, I guess, like, it's got the whatever that stuff is, like the same stuff in, like, whipped cream that they put in, like, Whippets now.
Yeah. Well, if you untwist the bottom of barbasol, you'll find little dinosaur DNA in there. And really, I mean, that's... Do you not get it?
Well, yeah, I get it. It just sucks.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Everybody loves Jurassic Park.
Yeah, no, yeah. You don't hear the theme and not get pumped.
Yeah. Nicole learned it on recorder. It was...
I know, you played it for
magical. Anyway.
Go on. Sorry.
So, this guy, Akutagawa, he was known as the father of Japanese short stories, apparently, and one of his works was even the basis for Akira Kurosawa's Rashomon. Did you ever see Rashomon?
No.
It's just about three guys at like a rundown temple gate waiting for the rain to pass. They all heard the same story of the same trial, so they each have three different perceptions of the trial. Like it's kind of like the three same stories. It's not. It's very artistic. That's why people know
mildly artistic.
Yeah, it's not even. I mean, anyway.
How old is it?
Oh, fucking 1957 or something. Like, it's Akira Kurosawa, so it's, like, in the 50s for sure. Like, it's... Yeah. Just watch Seven Samurai.
Yeah, everybody's got stoned and watched Seven Samurai. That's...
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. All right.
So, having your heroes die on you can be hard, and Shuji took Akutagawa's death very, very hard. With his schooling now fully neglected, Shuji spent all of his allowance on fancy clothes, alcohol, and... prostitutes. Sex workers. He even went to a few secret underground Marxist meetings, which at the time was being cracked down upon by the Japanese government. I've never had that level of grief. It's just like, got to go to my local Marxist underground. On December 10th, 1929, at the age of 20, Shuji made his first suicide attempt by trying to overdose on sleeping pills. He survived and was able to enroll in the French literature department of Tokyo Imperial University. As soon as he was enrolled, though, he instantly stopped caring about school again and once more just started focusing on fancy clothes, alcohol, and prostitutes. It was only a few months of this before Shuji stopped going to school in October of 1930 and ran away with a geisha he'd fallen in love with, named Hatsuyo Oyama. Shuji's family disowned him, and he was quickly expelled from Tokyo Imperial University. 9 days after he was expelled, Shuji once again attempted suicide by drowning off the coast of Kamakura with his new love. This wasn't the geisha Hatsuyo, though. This was a completely different girl.
This was new pussy.
Yeah, this was a new girl, a 19-year-old bartender named Shimiko Tanabe. Shinji and her would get high on sleeping pills and went on a 2-day bender before their suicide attempt. Shimiko successfully drowned, but as the tide drifted her and Shuji apart, Shuji was rescued by a fishing boat. He was charged by the police as an accomplice in Shimiko's death, and his family cut his allowance.
Yeah. Yeah. How old was he when he did this shit?
So he was 20.
20.
Yeah.
Damn. That's pretty old for...
Cutting your allowance? Or that...
That's pretty old for... killing yourselves after 2 weeks of knowing each other in a bender.
Well,
like,
not 2 weeks. The thing is, we don't know how long he'd known this girl for, but he ran away with a geisha, and like 9 days later, he's found with a completely new girl. So like at best, he like dropped off this geisha at the next bus stop. And then, like, found this other girl, and they knew each other for 8.5 days. But that's very unlikely. Like, he knew this girl for less than a week, and they just, like, had a murder pact with each other. Or suicide pact, I should say. But just, like, you gotta be pretty convincing.
Hell,
like,
God.
But the Tsushima family, powerful as they were, pulled some strings and got the police investigation dropped. About his first suicide attempt by overdose to this one by jumping into the ocean, Shuji would later say, "Well, that one didn't work. Let's have a try at the panoramic method instead. It's gallows humor.
God damn it.
Once Shuji was released on bail, the Tsushima family reinstated his allowance. Whew. Shuji recovered from his...
That was quick.
Yeah.
Well, he's out. He's going to need money.
You're not being investigated for murder anymore, I guess.
We're not going to wait to be sure he doesn't, do that with other just young women. No.
Just every time he leaves a dead body in his track.
We don't want to look poor.
That'd be a very, great serial killer. Is just you have failed, double suicides along the way, but you weren't really trying at your part. It's just another one. Damn it. Well, Shuji recovered from his near drowning and soon married Hatsuyo, the geisha he originally ran away with. But it wasn't long before he was arrested again.
At least he's just cool with it.
I mean, on again, off again.
What? That's just
double suicides. Yeah, I guess.
Does she just not hear about it? Okay, well, we'll assume she didn't hear about it. Move on.
So he gets arrested again, this time for hanging up posters for the Japanese Communist Party. And his older brother, Bunji, now head of the Tsushima family household, cut his allowance. Once again. So Shuji ran away from his wife.
If you cause the death of a young woman, alright, once you're out on bail, we can start flowing some cash to you. However, if you put up any of that red shit, that's it, you're cut off. Those are the rules here.
It's not fair. Have you seen their posters? They're very well organized. They're very nice. Communist posters are cool.
No, that's too far.
So Shuji ran away from his wife and his family as soon as he was released again, and he started being a barfly, sleeping wherever he could, but his wife and family just couldn't find him. But his brother Bunji was somehow able to get word out to him that if he just comes home, stops being involved in the Communist Party, and at least tries to graduate university, he can have his allowance back. So Shuji agreed and came back home. It had to have been a sizable allowance. I mean...
If you're affording, drinking and prostitutes...
Yeah.
That's...
I got $20 at the end of every week. I couldn't do dick.
I mean, the only thing keeping me from looking up escorts is it's not morality, son. It's funds. That's quite a bit.
It pissed me off because Hot Topic shirts were $25. I get $20 every week, and I'm like, fuck. So I continue to still just wear the same shirts that I had when I was thinner.
Oh yeah.
That's why.
Oh, I thought that was just your style. I wasn't gonna say anything.
Oh no, man. I don't wear skinny jeans because they weren't skinny when I first bought them. Or just regular pants. I just have had them for a while.
Oh god. The spandex is really forgiving on the waistline then.
I should be wearing Spanx, actually. I could probably pull off a pretty good figure.
You're about 10 pounds away from a moo-moo there, bud.
I'll fucking rock it, too. Don't fucking...
So cool, I'm catching up to you. When you switch over, give me your hand-me-downs.
Well, Shuji did what he could to try and be an upstanding citizen. He didn't have a job, but he was able to pay for his rent and groceries with his allowance, cigarettes and liquor included. And he was able to focus on school and his passion for writing again. He worked on short stories with the help of a popular writer at the time named Masuji Ibuse. Ibuse, not Bussy.
I get it right, I swear to God.
Ibuse had been a writer that was starting to get recognition and awards at this point. But just as a side note, Ibuse was already a recognized name, just within the literary world itself, but it wasn't until he wrote a novel in 1965 called Black Rain that he became known around the world, which I have it. I'm excited to read it. I found it by mistake and forgot about it, but it's just about after the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, there's just a group of people trying to run away from the rain cloud that's picked up all the contaminated water. So all it'll do is just rain fucking cancer and death and kill them instantly if it rains on them. Sounds fucking sick.
That's pretty fucked up. Jesus. Chocolate rain.
No.
Some stay dry and others feel the pain.
Anyway.
Oh, fuck.
That's a wrong time to bring that up.
Yes, it was. I'm sorry.
Anyway, for the next few years, Shuji wrote a lot of short stories under Ibusei, getting them published in literary journals. It wasn't until 1933, at the age of 24, that Shuji wrote a short story called Train, which was a turning point for him in a couple of different ways. The first was that it was written in a style that Shuji would continue...
Me too, brother.
What?
Nothing. Go on.
It was written in a style that Shuji would continue to use and popularize until his death. It was called the I novel. The I novel is a semi-autobiographical story where you basically tell a story from your life but make the characters like sort of fictional. So like there was a time I went out with me and my friends on like a Halloween night. We were way out past curfew just fucking around. And we start coming back down the road to get to the buddy's apartment, and we look across the street, and there are like cops that are like all over this parking lot, and they're breaking up another similar group of kids, and they have the fucking Flash up against the wall, and I'm just like, holy shit, like they caught the Flash, and I'm just like, all right guys, we better get back pretty quick, and so like we just ran as fast as we could as the cops pretty much just were eyeballing us, like, you know, and then as soon as I got back.
They don't care, man. You can just walk.
They've already got one group.
Like, most of the time, they're just gonna, like, just shine the light and hope you scatter so they don't have to fucking deal with it.
It's Halloween night.
That's how teenagers work.
Well, it's okay, because it's not me that did it. You see, it's an I novel. So even though that all did happen, the main character's name is Max, not Jordan.
Okay, so it's nonfiction that can't be used as evidence in court.
Yes,
okay.
Exactly.
All
Pretty
right.
much, yeah.
All right.
So, while this wasn't the first time this had been done, the I novel wasn't all that common either. The second revelation that Train made for Shuji was that this was the first time he went by his popular pen name, and also what I will be calling Shuji Tsushima from now on, since this is how people know him best, Osamu Dazai. His name could have been something random, or inspired by something completely unrelated, but according to the scholar known as Google Translate, his name is coincidentally a bit fitting. Osamu means to repair, and Dazai is the word for sin or shame, and trying to make amends for letting people down was something Dazai was always trying to do. He was self-aware that he was a piece of shit.
I mean, it doesn't, like, fix it.
Exonerate him for everything he does.
Like, if being aware that you're a piece of shit made it better, I would be a much better person. I know from experience that's not how that works.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that I'm self-aware, but I also find myself very funny. So now, after his failed double suicide with Shimeko, Dazai did continue going to university as a promise to his brother Bunji for the next 5 years. It wasn't until 1935 that he realized this was a long time to be at school and not graduate. He's about 25 now or so. So he dropped out, decided to focus fully on his writing. So he applied to a Tokyo newspaper, but they turned him down. With his last bit of misfortune, Dazai collected a few of his works, Memories, Flowers of Buffoonery, and False Spring, and released them all under one title that he called Final Years. All these stories dealt with isolation, drunkenness, adultery. Basically, these were all I novels dealing with Dazai himself, of course. And obviously naming this collection Final Years was a barely veiled hint that he'd try to commit suicide again, which he did. On March 19th, 1935, Osamu Dazai attempted to hang himself at the age of 25, but failed. He lost consciousness, but the time it took to discover him and cut him down was enough to save his life. It was only about 3 weeks before Dazai developed appendicitis and had to be hospitalized. And there's nothing better for a suicidal alcoholic than introducing him to morphine. He was released from the hospital, but he is, of course, now just a straight-up morphine addict. He could only keep he could only keep this up for about 1.5 years before his family locked him in an institution to try and get clean. He went cold turkey for a month before he was released. I don't know if that's necessarily going to stop it from, being an addiction.
Once you kind of get a taste for that, that's...
I mean,
that's always going to be in the back of your head.
Like, oh, his withdrawal stopped. Like, Yeah, I'm pretty sure like a month though. Like he's still itching for it.
Well, now I feel great, so
yeah, well,
that's how that works.
Like he never says that they put him in a fucking program or anything like that. I'm sure they didn't really have that back then, but they just stuck him in a fucking institution.
Well, they don't want to look bad.
Well, he's gonna look great next to the guy shitting himself, you know? Like he's in an institution, and it's like, is that really the best that you can do? Like, what's wrong with your son? He smoked pot once. It's time to throw him in the oven. You know, like what are you gonna do? Like, like, well, it's just. I guess they didn't really. I don't know how much they really knew about morphine addiction, where they were like, "This is an actual issue," because it's just heroin.
I feel like opiates have been around for long enough for them to know damn well, like, how gnarly that gets.
That's true. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, while he was away, Dazai's wife Hatsuyo was sleeping with his best friend, who he himself was a piece of shit in his own right. But we'll get to him a bit later. Dazai found out about this and easily convinced his wife that the only honorable thing to do would just to just have a good old double suicide. So they both tried to OD on sleeping pills.
Okay. What the fuck?
They both got horribly ill, but they ultimately survived the suicide attempt.
We're just gonna rule out this being like his chosen method of serial killing? It seems like okay, so like the amount of double suicides is outweighing the lone suicides. I'm just saying.
I mean, I brought it up as a joke, but I
don't know.
She did survive. I mean,
good. Like,
well, I mean, so this is his fourth suicide attempt, but this is only the second time that he's doing it with somebody else.
Oh, okay, so we're 50-50.
We're 50-50.
My bad. I thought we were like 1-3.
No.
My bad. Okay, go on.
Well, she did survive, and so did he. So he just did the next best thing, and in 1937 got a divorce. Like he tried one. Fuck it, just sign these papers, you know?
Fuck God.
So in just 1929 to 1937 alone, Osamu Dazai had made 4 different suicide attempts. Quickly after his divorce, he met a middle school teacher named Michiko Ishihara, and for a while, Dazai was like a completely different man. They married on January 8th, 1939, and had a daughter, Sanako, born June of 1941. He also met an admirer, Shizuko Oda, in 1941, but we're going to get back to her a little bit later as well. Now, it's around this time that Dazai wrote a story called Run, Melos, which I couldn't actually find an English translation to, but what I did find was a 1992 anime on YouTube based on the story.
Sick.
And an even more accurate Wikipedia article about it. The only reason I mentioned Run Melos in the first place is because this is a very famous story in Japan. Like, they named a fucking train like Run Melos or something like that. Like, it's still used as required reading in a lot of elementary classes to this day. And I gotta say, that YouTube video, very, very VHS quality. Like, this was
game for this. What are you doing later?
Well, so here's the story. The whole story is based on the tale of Daemon and Pythias in ancient Grecian times. We all know it, but just as a recap.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so, just because I know it, keep it short, Yeah.
This particular tale is about Melos, who hears about the terrible deeds of King Dionysus, who's a tyrant with a penchant for claiming assassination attempts and giving out executions because of it. So Melos, pissed off about this guy's just paranoia and injustices, he decides he's going to make an assassination attempt, because he won't see that coming. Pretty quickly he's caught, and he's sentenced to an execution. But Melos pleads with Dionysus to... I cannot get a handle on this page. Don't want to have you waiting in anticipation.
Stop using so much lotion.
Patient.
Christ.
So he begs King Dionysus to hold off his execution for 3 days, while he goes home real quick to set up his sister's wedding. As a compromise, the king says, all right, how about this? You have 3 days to just be free and do what you gotta do. If you're not back by sundown on the 3rd day, we'll execute your friend Silanuntius instead.
Sweet deal.
I owe you one, brother. I promise I'll be back. So off Melos goes. Without saying too much so as not to worry his family, he arranges for the marriage of his sister and her boyfriend, and runs into a bunch of obstacles along the way. Things like bandits and a bridge collapse, and he nearly gives up, much to the hope of Dionysus, who wants his citizens to have their hopes dashed that anyone would ever do something so honorable as sacrificing his life for a friend.
The homie is just like, fuck this.
But you'll be back soon. You just wait. You guys just wait.
Shit.
So, eventually, Melos makes it right before sundown on the third day, and Silenuntius is set free. There on the stage, Melos asks Silenuntius to hit him for ever risking his life, and Silenuntius asks Melos to hit him for ever doubting his return. The crowd goes wild over the beauty of their friendship, and it's clear they both want, but they want both of them to live, and Dionysus, fearing a riot, appeases the crowd and pardons Melos. The end.
Alright.
It's a kid's story.
So this is a 19... So that's going to be in, what was it, early 90s anime?
Yeah.
That's not translated?
No.
Oh, no, you said it was translated. Okay.
Well, it's got the captions there at the bottom, which sometimes when the VHS goes out of tracking, you kind of lose what the fuck they're saying.
It sounds magical.
The one thing that I will say is they made the main character Melos just unreasonably thick, you know?
What?
Like, they just made him, like...
I mean, are we talking, like man thick, or like
an
hourglass
like
figure?
a butch Samoan mom. Just, like...
A pear-shaped man?
Just running out there and just letting his legs glisten in that fucking sunlight, and it is...
That's the takeaway you got from me?
You want to go watch hentai?
I mean, yeah, but... I don't see what that has to do with this.
Osamu Dazai also completed work on a story called Schoolgirl at this time as well. It's fine.
I'm not.
It's not particularly interesting to talk about, but...
giving him a chance. Go on.
Well, really, not too many of Dazai's works are altogether interesting in the first place. He's just a really good writer. That's why people still read his stuff all these years later. I only bring up Schoolgirl because although it's just a story about a single day in the life of an unnamed schoolgirl, I really like this passage about what it's like to be catcalled by a group of guys on the street as a young girl when there's no one else around, and how scary that can be. It goes like this. No schoolgirl voice, unfortunately. I emerged from the path through the shrine's woods and, close by the station, found myself on the road with 4 or 5 laborers. As usual, these guys spat out some nasty and unmentionable phrases in my direction. I hesitated, unsure of what to do. I wanted to pass them, but to do so, I'd have to thread my way amongst them in order to slip by them. That was scary. On the other hand, if I just stood there without saying anything and waited a good while to let the laborers get far enough ahead of me, that would take much more guts. It would be rude, and they might get angry. My body grew hot. I felt like I was about to cry. I was ashamed to be on the verge of tears, so I turned and laughed in the direction of the guys. Then slowly, I started walking after them. The whole story just brings back bad memories about what it was like to be a teenager. And I think that's pretty impressive from the viewpoint of a 30-year-old Dazai.
Yeah, definitely. And FYI, if anybody has a hard time with that nowadays, show absolutely no mercy with finding out exactly who they work for, calling who they work for, and making sure that they get in deep shit for that, because they will.
Yeah, we have pepper spray now.
I can tell you from experience, it's not going to end well for them.
Were you catcalling somebody?
No, I've had people I've worked with like catcall people. I've had people. We've been like working on college campuses, and I've had to like pull somebody aside before and be like, "Are you out of your fucking mind? like seriously, I'm gonna send you home. It's never okay, but oh my god, no, not here, bud. Jesus."
We are right across from the lecture hall where they were just talking about feminist writings. Are you serious?
I was like, dude, I don't think you understand how fast this is gonna suck. You just if you're too dumb to understand why you just shouldn't do this, I'm not even gonna try to educate you right now. But I'm telling you, no, not right now. Okay,
when's it okay to? When am I supposed to yell at a young female? Well, never.
No.
But actually, it goes on a scale. It's even less appropriate right now than it usually is when you're driving by and you're doing it. Like,
it's really obnoxious because it's like, they're always, married, and you're like, married or not single, and you're like, so yeah, how'd you meet your wife? And they're never like, oh, I just yelled at a random young woman while I was working. Like, nobody ever you don't get laid from just scaring women.
I made kissy faces and I grabbed my crotch, and she was just, wow.
And that's not why they do it. They're not like, oh, you just gotta throw the line out. No! They know what they're doing. So yeah, no mercy. Fuck them. Tell their boss. Get whoever you need involved to make sure that they're in trouble.
That's 100% correct. I mean, just fucking, fuck those people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of thinking that, like, it's weird to see because, like, our parents' generation had that, like, being completely reasonable and fine. Like, well, you can't even catcall lady, and to watch it die so extremely fast. Like, I was expecting it to more, like, peter out over generations, but instead it's gone to, like, no, they need full-on repercussions felt. Like,
yeah, dude.
Somebody yells at you, maybe beat their ass. Like, I'm for it. That's fine.
Yeah, or at least get them fired.
Yeah, just go ahead and get them fired. Fucking record shit.
Yeah.
Always record. If you ever have an interaction with somebody that you don't know on the street, just fucking record it. Record it. They're probably going to try and sue you. I mean, just go for it.
Yeah.
Especially record cops, please. Anyway, so when December of 1941 rolled around, Japan began the Pacific Theater War with the United States. Japan had already been at war with China since 1937 at this point, but pissing on the U.S. really kicked things off into high gear. The call for arms was up, and every able-bodied young man was deployed for war. I say as I fucking belch, like, the able-bodied, like myself.
Why'd you have to mention it? You could have just, like, covered it with your forearm and played it off.
I can't reach my forearm to my face. It's too much weight.
Next time, just belch.
Well, luckily for Dazai, he's not able-bodied. He had tuberculosis, which would stay with him for the rest of his life. He had that fucking lung, from the fucking near drowning.
Was it his dad that died of lung cancer, too?
Yeah.
So that's probably not.
Yeah, well, they couldn't figure out it was the cigarettes at that point either. They're just like, oh,
what could it have been?
The doctor's just out there fucking with chew in his mouth and just fucking double packing his smoke.
Just a whole can of Grizzly and a cigarette.
Pass me the skull. It can't be this. If it was bad for you, they wouldn't have made it mint flavored.
Exactly.
Mint is an herb. So during the war, the Japanese censors were very careful about what was being released to the public, and they weren't interested in Dazai and his little friends making a bunch of weird little stories about the demons of their past. It was just gonna bum people out. But Dazai instead got a couple of books published that were retellings of classic Japanese fairy tales. Basically, they were fairy tales with the characters talking with a bit more of a modern flair. They'd drink, they'd smoke, essentially making them Osamu Dazai characters instead of how they normally were in the old tales. He also carefully selected, though, which stories he was doing by making sure the morals of the story directly contradicted what the Imperial Japanese government was doing at that time. But the censors never caught on, and since they were just a collection of fairy tales to them, they let him publish it. So the kids weren't going to fucking, understand what the moral was, but the parents are very clearly saying, like, don't commit war crimes like we've been doing against the Chinese, like
the entire time.
Now, during the war, Dazai had his home burned down twice from American fire bombings in Tokyo. On both occasions, Dazai and his family had escaped without injury. Before World War II's end, Michiko gave birth to their son, Masaki, in 1944. Immediately after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and the subsequent surrender of Japan, there was a total shift for Japanese writers, understandably. You see, the thing is, for the rest of the world, with the exception of probably Germany, everyone saw the destruction made by the atom bomb and thought, wow, how scary, the world, it sure is moving fast, huh? Good thing we won. But it was the Japanese that had to fucking live with that. Up till this point,
really?
Well, up until that point, they were still living like 100 years in the past, thanks to the Meiji era telling everyone, you know why we do so well? It's not our self-sustaining and self-serving economy. It's tradition and superstition. I mean, people were totally stuck in the past, committing suicide out of honor and actually giving a shit about family spirits. I mean, hell, a lot of Japanese people still hold on to those traditions to this day. When World War II started, planes were a fairly new concept to the Japanese, much less making planes fight.
A terrifying concept.
Yeah. Where do you think fucking Robotech came from? I mean, come on.
just sitting him down and like, all right, there's a lot of knobs in here. I know it's intimidating. I want you to just go balls to the walls until it gets up, and then just try to get this thing into something.
Like,
just do your best. Don't
honestly,
worry about all that.
That kind of, the whole kamikaze thing kind of makes sense, where it's just like, and I press what again to fire? Like, don't just run into it.
Okay, never mind. I don't know. I heard that wasn't actually like that prevalent. Like, it's just like super extreme and like crazy to hear about, so we hear about it.
I don't know how prevalent it really was, but I mean, it for sure. I mean, happened. You know, we know about that, but it's like, it wasn't super effective either.
I mean, I know there weren't just like fleets of like dudes just like soaring out and all just bombing.
Yeah, like, okay, I'll put it this way.
Because financially, there's no way that's...
Yeah, no, I'll put it this way. There are photos out there of like the fucking like cartoonish outline of like smoke that the kamikaze made on like the side of a ship, but it didn't create a hole. You know, like there's just like it's there on the side. And it's like it wasn't super effective. Like, I mean, honestly, they were doing kamikaze, I would say, against warships, and it's like until you like crashed on top of the like a Navy cruiser or something like that, like sure that would break some things, but there's not a bunch of people on deck. As soon as they see your plane,
like, oh god, did you guys bring any mechanics or welders? No. Oh god, we're fucked.
Like as soon as you saw a plane coming from miles away, everyone like they don't just like lay flat on there like I hope they don't see us. Like no, they go inside the boat. Like they're gonna be fine. Like so I don't know, but
all right.
But either way, all at once, modern technology literally comes crashing down on them. And all of a sudden you had people looking at the way they were doing things and realizing they were only doing things the hard way because it was tradition, and the best people to express that frustration were, of course, writers. But these were also younger people, typically in their early 20s to 30s, realizing that nothing mattered anymore. In the eyes of the Japanese public, they were already too old to start a career in anything meaningful. At least that was how they perceived it. So they did nothing but get irresponsibly drunk, smoked, did drugs, wrote about how shitty their lives were. They were termed burai, which means undependable, and their writing style was called buraiha, which means school of decadence.
That's punk as fuck.
Yeah, well, actually, that's the whole thing, is while the young writers recalled this as a means to an insult by the older generation, it got transformed as a badge of honor among them, much like punk. I mean, everyone's just like, oh, look at these undependables. And they're just like, fuck yeah, hey, buddy, you an undependable? Fuck yeah, I am, you an undependable? And that's how punk, the term punk, really got started for the music scene, was just, basically they didn't realize they meant it was taken from William S. Burroughs writings, where they were like, some punk shouted at me from the subway, and they're like, oh man, that's awesome. I feel like a punk. Are you a punk? And then they later asked William S. Burroughs, like, hey, what does it mean? And he was like, that means somebody that takes it in the ass.
I know, dude. And that's what. And I feel like everybody finds that out from like you know when they get into music in like middle school, and then some teacher thinks it's appropriate to be like, do you know what that word means? It's somebody who gets pounded in the ass in prison. And you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that was that whole thing with kids that were like sagging their pants below their ass.
You know, they were like prison, so they can fuck them.
Yeah, did you know that it was meant for like a sign that say, hey, I love big cock in my ass, and it's like, whoa, hey, buddy, well, it's not what it means now. Like,
also, I'm pretty sure, like, I mean, yeah, okay, that's one way to explain the sagging thing, or it could be that, since they were inmates, they didn't fucking care about giving them proper sizes on anything.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of okay with, like, just changing fashion trends to mean something else completely different. Like, all the girls are doing the middle part these days. They don't realize that they look like weird, like, 1930s men, but it's okay. Like, we should just be like...
What, do you prefer them to look like Danzig? I don't understand.
Well, like, they used to do the side part, and that was fine. I mean, middle part works for some people, but everyone's doing the middle part, and it's just not for everyone.
I don't know.
It's not for everyone. No, it's fine. go do what you want to do, but I would love to just tell people, like, you know what the middle part used to mean. Just go
to this any woman like, you know, the middle part means that you're a man who gets fucked in the ass in prison.
Hey, can I
just who the fuck are you? Like,
can I smell your feet? What? Why?
Whoa,
the middle part. That means that you like to get your feet suckled on like a couple of grapes.
Jesus, Jordan. God damn.
Look, if I can make this benefit for me.
I just got a little window into what you're into. That was very specific. That's not something you just happen upon.
No, it just came up.
It just snake in the grass.
It just came up. No, it's fine.
All right, cool. Whatever. Go on. No, totally. Yeah.
Just reminds me, for whatever reason, of the story of the one guy that, like, he thought he was really into scat. And he paid a prostitute, and as soon as the poop started, like, coming out, he never thought about the smell. And he's just like, I'm not into this.
That's a terrible circumstance. It's a terrible story. It's
after World War II ended.
Thank you.
Osamu Dazai's work became insanely popular. Being a former drug-addicted, alcoholic adulterer that tried to kill himself 4 different times made him king of the burai. And since his previous works were written in the I-novel style, you got to read all about his past exploits. Although he never expressly talked about his failed double suicide and his institutionalization in his stories before, word still got around and he didn't deny any of it. And I don't know how much of this is actually true, but there's been movies made about Osamu Dazai, and I was watching one of the newer ones, and basically, like, you know, he was always life of the party when he's in bars. Like, you read his writings and you know how deep inside he was very fucking depressed all the fucking time. And this was all an act.
We're gonna quarantine you until we find out that this is not contagious.
But he was the life of the party when, you know, people went out to bars and shit. Like, he was loud and obnoxious. People fucking loved him. Plus, I mean, we're gonna get into this a bit later. Dude's hot. People love to hang around with the hot guy. And so during this movie, I mean, I don't know if this is something that they just made up or what, but, like, basically, you know, somebody's asking him about the double suicide in the fucking water, and he's like, you know, well, I'm floating out there, and, you know, she starts calling another guy's name, like, oh, Johnny, and I'm like, what? Who's Johnny? And I kicked her away from me downstream, you know, like, it was like a joke to them, but, like, I'm sure that's not what really happened, or I don't even know if that's even what he would say, but it seems kind of up his alley. Yeah, but anybody who's going to take that out of
context is going to be like, see? Like, that case is closed, right?
Do we have double jeopardy in Japan? On March 30th, 1947, Michiko gave birth to their 3rd child, Satoko, who would go on to be a very respectable writer in her own right under the name Yuko Tsushima, winning numerous awards in her later career. Never read any of her stuff, but from, I mean, what I can tell, yeah, she's got her own Wikipedia page and everything, so she's got to be doing pretty well. That same year, Dazai released his novel, Villain's Wife. This isn't like villain, like a bad guy, although I guess he kind of was. Villain's Wife refers to a famous 15th century French poet named Francois Villon, who was constantly in trouble with the law. Think Casanova, except less sexcapades and more robbery and bar stabbings.
Sick.
So Villon's Wife was the tale of Villon from his wife's perspective, but in a more modern setting. It was about a Japanese writer in World War II leaving his wife to deal with his alcoholism, adultery, and debts. By the end of the book, through all of the writer's bullshit, the wife decides to remain faithful and stay by his side. There is no way that couldn't have been about him.
I don't know. It's the, what do you call it?
I-novel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, supposedly this wasn't.
Totally
it's just it's a work of fiction. Totally. I mean, the name is even referring to Villon, who's that's a person who existed. It's historical fiction, if you will. Oh, I see what you're doing. Got, brother? No, nothing. I thought you were gonna crop.
I'm just twisting it around.
Oh, okay. Just
the beard, not my penis. Go on.
I like the way that your penis looks today, by the way.
Don't.
Speaking of staying faithful, Remember the chick?
That's why we have just drawings. If it was pictures, it would be just both of us just in here pantsless together.
Remember that chick that Dazai started romancing around the time of his first child's birth, Shizuko Ota? Well, she gave birth to a daughter on November 12th, 1947, named Haruko. Guess who the dad was? Dazai also finally published his story on Shizuko Ota's diaries called Setting Sun, about a family that has a fall from grace. That was his main reason of hanging around with this chick in the first place. So they go from their richer beginnings to having to live like commoners. The main character thinks they're cursed because she set snake eggs on fire and they're haunted by a viper's ghost. It's all very depressing fun. Anyway, the whole reason Dazai stuck with her so long was because he wanted to write a story about someone that felt real. And he figured Shizuko Oda's life was just sad enough to work. So he essentially just took her diaries and was like, yeah, this is real shitty. I'm gonna go ahead and just make a real shitty story about shitty people. So, and I mean
at least he didn't I don't know, literally make it nonfiction and then make all of us read it in elementary school or something.
That's true. His only really nonfiction one is required reading.
Yeah.
But so it is still essentially an I novel though, because I mean, even though he changes her name or whatever, and it is very clearly based on her diaries, there is a character, she wrote in her diaries about a guy who's a character in the novel, who's a writer from Tokyo, who's, her brother's friend, and just is a real sleazy piece of shit, and how much she loves him. It's very clearly Osamu Dazai.
Just a greaseball.
Yeah. And, I mean, they're...
a poetic greaseball.
Yeah. Well, so the funny thing about this, though, is that when the book came out, she's just like, oh, honey, that's so good for you. I'm so proud, where's my name on it? And he's like, what do you mean? She was like, well, you used my diary. This is about my family.
You literally just changed my name.
And he's like, you're not gonna get credit. Boop. Just your little nosy. Just doop.
That's
you're
fucking fantastic.
You're so cute. You're not gonna get paid. So, yeah. So... Between publishing two different books...
Based off my daughter's stolen diaries.
Oh, this isn't his daughter. That's his lover.
Oh.
Yeah. No, he had a daughter
damn
with
it.
her.
God damn, I always lose track of this shit. I'm going to have such, just a fucked up view of all of these people in my head by the end of this.
How'd that child go into retirement at the age of 6? No, Caleb, no, that's his mother.
Dude,
So between publishing two different books and fathering two different daughters from two different women, 1947 was a hell of a year for Osamu Dazai. Now, he was never really on the wagon, so to speak, so it's hard to say he fell off the wagon during this time, but he did start drinking a lot more, and this was making his tuberculosis worse. He started coughing up blood. Tomie Yamazaki was born September 29th, 1919. Her father built and founded the first beauty school in Japan. She married a man named Shuichi on December 9th, 1944, at the age of 25. On December 21st of that same year, Shuichi was deployed to the Philippines. After the Americans landed there, Shuichi was never seen again. They had been married for only 12 days. It was 3 years later, in 1947, that Tomie Yamazaki and Osamu Dazai met. He's probably just hanging out in, Manila,
Sure. Yeah, let's go with the happy note there. Moving on.
So around this time, Dazai's publisher, who I have nothing but the utmost respect for dealing with Dazai's bullshit for God knows how many years, confronted Dazai about finally just sitting down and writing a book he'd been talking about writing for years. Dazai supposedly told his publisher bits and pieces of what it was about, and the publisher told him to his face, these aren't characters you just made up. These are real people. And this isn't some I-novel either. This is just a straight-up autobiography. Go write it. So, and go write it, Osamu Dazai did.
Good. No. Good on the publisher.
Yeah. They have a job for a reason, By completely abandoning his wife and children, as well as his mistress Shizuko Oda and her child, he ran away with his mistress Tomie to a hot spring resort in Atami, Japan. There he began writing what would become his magnum opus. Eventually, Dazai moved in with Tomie fully, and he finished his book in the middle of May. No Longer Human was published just 1 month later in June of 1948. No Longer Human became an instant classic upon its release. It was written in the first person. Not unusual for an I novel like what Dazai was known for, but this seemed different. Besides the name changes to the characters, everything seemed a little too familiar. As a matter of fact, No Longer Human better translates in Japanese to disqualified from being human, as in how disgusted with his life Dazai felt. Now, it might be important to note that the main character of the novel, Oba Yozo, was the name of a character from one of his earliest works, Flowers of Buffoonery. Why reuse a character for his most important work? Maybe it was a character that he had similarities to, like with Dazai than anyone else. Nobody knows. And tell me how many of these things just sound a little familiar to you about Dazai's life. So the story begins. I have seen 3 pictures of the man. The first, a childhood photograph you might call it, shows him about the age of 10. A small boy surrounded by a great many women, his sisters and cousins, no doubt. He stands in brightly checked trousers by the edge of a garden pond. His head is tilted at an angle of 30 degrees to the left, and his teeth are bared in an ugly smirk. The story begins with the narrator looking at 3 photographs. Accompanying them are 3 notebooks, diaries written by the subject of this book, a man named Oba Yozo. The first photograph shows a family, a mom, a dad, and a handful of kids, the youngest of which is Oba himself, who grins like a little fool, showing all his teeth with wide eyes. He looks like a happy kid, but on closer inspection you can see he has clenched fists, almost like he's angry or in pain. Upon reading the first notebook, you find out a bit about Oba's childhood. Oba lived in a pretty sizable place. His father was a government official, so they had a number of staff working throughout the home. Even from an early age, Oba knew he was a bit off. While other people could choose what they wanted to eat between 2 things fairly easily, it would lead Oba into a silent little panic attack. He had to have people choose for him, which came easy for him because the house staff would always baby him and bring him food, which turns out was fortunate because he probably would have starved otherwise. Not because he couldn't choose what to eat, but because he couldn't feel the sensation of hunger. When he was older, he knew he had to eat at certain times, but only because he observed this behavior from other people. If anything, Oba felt like some sort of creature observing and mimicking humans rather than being one. The best way to be in a person's favor, he discovered, was laughter. So he would do stupid shit that he called clowning to get people's praises, but really he was just being manipulative. In school, he even wrote a story for his writing class about how he was on a train with his mom, and he pissed in a spittoon thinking it was some little piss pot. At recess, he followed his writing teacher back to the teacher's lounge, where he saw everyone reading his story and losing their shit. Him pissing in a spittoon probably never happened, but it was what he needed to make his teachers and fellow classmates think he was simple-minded so he could just skirt by school. He even made sure that his lowest grades would be in a deportment class, basically a class for manners, because his family would think it was funny. And I mean, he was a very bright kid. He never needed to study all throughout school. I take it you were like that?
Shh. We're not broadcasting that.
Sometimes he didn't even need to try his clowning to be immensely likable. One day, Oba's father was leaving on a business trip, and he's asking all the kids what they want while he's away. His dad gets to Oba asking, "Will it be a book for you? A lion mask for a New Year lion dance? They sell them now in children's sizes. Wouldn't you like one?"
So is it just adult sizes before the line?
I guess.
It's like, adults only, fuck off. Like, no, you can't see it.
There's just a bunch of guys like in the fucking streets during New Year's Eve just fucking
Are you sure they're okay for kids now? Yeah, we took the penis off of it.
Kids are just on the side. They cannot dance. They're just like, "You can't do this." Like, and being given a choice, though, his one biggest fear, Oba tries to decide for himself. So he says a book. But he can tell that this isn't what the father expected of him. So that night he goes into his father's study, crossed out the request for a book in his notebook, and wrote lion mask instead. His dad comes back from the business trip telling his mom, What do you think I found when I opened my notebook at the toy shop? See, somebody had written here lion mask. It's not my handwriting. For a minute I couldn't figure it out. Then it came to me. This was some of Yozo's mischief. You know, I asked him what he wanted from Tokyo, but he just stood there grinning without saying a word. Later, he must have gotten to wanting that lion mask so badly he couldn't stand it. He's certainly a funny kid. Pretends to not know what he wants and then goes and writes it. If he wanted the mask so much, all he had to do was tell me. I burst out laughing in front of everyone at the toy shop.
Is that funny interaction there? That's like basic Oregon passive aggressiveness. That's not
What, just graffitiing?
Oh no, it's fine.
I mean, I guess that's the thing though, is like he's not even trying to be funny or anything. He just doesn't want to fucking disappoint people. Well, and like they're just like when he said a book to his dad just kind of goes, okay, and he's like, okay, fuck, I guess I won't get the book then, like,
fine, I'll be an
Christ.
ass then, whatever.
Just give me a fucking mask. You know what, Dad? Jesus. So he had done his clowning so often that when he sincerely did something stupid, everyone thought it was just Oba being a comedian. And unfortunately, as much as his family and servants liked Oba, some of the servants liked Oba a little too much. When his father gone for days at a time, his siblings away at school, and his sickly mother confined to bed, maids and butlers alike would often take turns sexually abusing young Oba. This only further distanced himself in his mind as being human. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Which a lot of abuse victims feel. Get treated like an object. See yourself as an object. Oba never told anyone about this abuse, even believed that as an adult, women were attracted to him because they could sniff out that he could keep love a secret.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Right?
Oh, God. That's really alarming to me, actually. That, like,
yeah, it's...
Because, I mean, like, I don't know. Let's say he has... What'd you say? It was like a family of like 30 of them or something at the beginning, right?
That lives in that house, yeah.
So, like, let's say... I mean, I have no idea how rich people living works. Let's say they have 2 butlers and 2 maids.
I think it was more than that.
Yeah, probably.
But
even with just 4 people, just like that's impossible for like knowledge of that to not get out.
Yeah. Well,
like,
that's. I mean, honestly, I wonder though. Like now that you bring it up, like it is this whole thing with that family. I mean, people. We can drop the veil here. This is 100% just an Osamu Dazai biography or autobiography.
Well,
people found that out pretty fucking fast. Yeah.
This seems to be this guy's entire career.
It is.
Everybody going like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Wink. But like it was just like we know for a fact that Osamu Dazai, like they were giving him an allowance even though he was like resident fuck up and everything. And to me it seems like they just kind of were like if you're not going to have a career or anything, just stay in this shed until you're dead. Like, just don't be the family embarrassment. Like,
God, if I could just stay in a shed until I was dead.
I've thought about it a lot, where I'm just like, God, dude, if I had $1 million.
I feel like both of us have made that fucking decision, and financially, it's just not going to work out. Like,
look, if the government wants me alone and dead in a shed, I can make that promise. Just give me the money. Like, I'm not important enough to do anything else. Just let me just go die in the shed. Just give me some smokes and some booze, prostitutes and some books,
No, that's too high budget. That's not how it's going to work.
I didn't say they have to be escorts. I said prostitutes.
All right, we've been good so far. I'm not going to delve into how much I don't know the difference between the two.
I feel like escort costs money, whereas a prostitute is just like, hand job for a bucket of chicken. Like, all right.
What? Jesus.
What?
No.
You can see the clear difference when you start at the beginning and end of 82nd Avenue. When you're driving down, you get closer to, like, civilization, and you're like, oh, okay, that girl must cost a little bit of money. But then when you get towards, like, the airport, and you're just like, oh, there's my girl. Just right in front of the fucking Pepper Tree Inn. Like...
Oh, God. The Pussycats that used to be on 82nd, just the gnarest looking spot. And that was before... Oh, okay, I don't want to go into this. I don't want to tell people I know the history of this.
You go to a fucking Pussycats and you're like looking at the back of their menu and they've got like our history, you know?
Our history, scandals, how we do things different now, totally. Like,
well, so I mean that's the thing though is like with all these people living in that home, if they knew that he was being like sexually abused and shit, how much do you want to bet that they just want to keep that quiet too? Like that's.
oh yeah, I mean they were so concerned about their image that they were like still funding him, even though it was going to be potentially dangerous for him, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
it's like just
they're not going to be like, yeah, we staff diddlers.
Yeah,
Like,
and I mean that's the thing is like barbiturates, anything that would kill you, like morphine was over the counter. You didn't need a prescription, and it's like it wasn't expensive either. It's just like if you're giving him enough money to pay rent, he can pick up anything to overdose at any time. You know, like I am sure it wasn't top of their list of concerns. Just like, we got like 3 other kids. You know, like whatever. You know, like so. The narrator then looks at the second photograph. The face in the second snapshot is startlingly unlike the first. He is a student in this picture, although it is not clear whether it dates from high school or college days. At any rate, he is now extraordinarily handsome. But here again the face fails inexplicably to give the impression of belonging to a living human being. In the second notebook, Oba grows a little older and makes his way into a new school, where his clowning has essentially become his personality. At school, there's a kid named Takechi, who's the weakest, ugliest, dirtiest kid. Doesn't do shit, just sits around and stares. They call him an onlooker. We've all had one. We won't get into
if you didn't
names.
know one, it was you.
Yeah. One day, Oba is at PE, and he's running up to the horizontal long bar. You know, you're supposed to fucking jump up there and do a fucking flip or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. He yells, jumps, completely misses, falls on his ass. Everyone laughs and moves on. Oba did what he needed to not be noticed for the next little while. Now he can just kind of sit back in the shadows and not pretend anymore. When out of nowhere, Takechi taps Oba on the shoulder and says, "You did it on purpose." And any other kid would probably be like, "Yeah, so what? Fuck you, freak. Your parents are poor. Get fucked." But Oba fucking freaks. Nobody had ever seen through his facade before, and Oba doesn't really know what to do. But he starts befriending Takechi, inviting him over to his place with the idea that he can keep an eye on Takechi in case he decides to kill him later. He was so freaked out by having his disguise crumpled by someone that he actually thought, shit, I might need to go to prison for a little while. Of course, he never did commit child homicide, but what Takechi...
Yeah, it's just kid shit.
Yeah, it's just kid shit, you know.
It's just weird-ass kid shit. Like...
I remember one kid that I never really talked to before, like, was just like, I guess bored in class or something, and he was fucking around and he was just like, "Oh man, how much do you hate this kid over here?" And I was like, I mean, I don't talk to him. He smells like, you know, what if I had to go back there, probably like pot, you know, like his parents probably like were very neglectful and everything, you know. And it's just like, yeah, weird smelly kid. I'll tell you what, man, after school we're gonna kill him. And I was like, mm-hmm. You know, and I'm like, I didn't know how to just like kind of put my hand on his knee and just be like, honey, listen to me. You don't joke about that. Like, but instead he flips over my fucking worksheet and he starts drawing a plan about waiting behind bushes and like, all right, and like a fucking like football, like.
So anyway, that's how I got framed for planning that kid's murder.
Yeah, he's just like, yeah, on the back of my fucking worksheet, he's just like, and then he's gonna go around this bushes over here, and then we're gonna jump out and we're gonna stab him. And I'm just like, ha ha ha. Like, go, turn around, you know? And like, so he goes back and does whatever. And I'm just fucking like scratching that out of the back of my fucking worksheet. Just like, dude, if the teacher ever like seems to think like, oh, what's this? Oh, look at that. It's 2 stick figures behind what looks to be a cloud, perhaps a bush. And then look at this arrow of this 3rd stick figure walking behind the bush. And then look at these other arrows, you know? like, dude, holy fuck. Like, do not do that. So.
Yeah, children are fucking terrible.
Yeah. So, of course, Oba never does commit child homicide, but what Takechi does for Oba is get him into art. Of course, Takechi doesn't have any other friends, so once Oba just shows him his own art to kind of pass the time, Takechi just inflates his ego as much as he can, you know? Oh, wow, you're so good, sugoi! You know, shit like that. It means very good in Japanese.
Alright.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's kind of deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, I'll
We're talking about a scab, by the way. We're not talking about a... All that they hear is, that's kind of deep, isn't it?
Oh, fuck.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting sucked right in there.
Oh, Jesus, Murph. Alright.
So, eventually when Oba hits college, he moves away, but his parents pay for his own apartment. He gets tired with his false identity of clowning. He's much more reserved now that he's older. He starts skipping the classes that he's supposed to be going to in order to go to art class, a hobby he held on to ever since Takechi told him that he was just good. Well, it's in art class that Oba meets a guy named Hariki. The guy is really wearing a suit and tie to art class and is very, how's it going, guy? Top of the day. And anyway, one day Hariki asks Oba if he could borrow 5 yen, and Oba doesn't know what to do. He's just like, okay. And Hariki is like, all right, we're going drinking. It's on me. You're my guest. I should try that sometime, actually. Like, buddy, can I borrow $20? Like, all right. Hey, man, this is going to get us a couple of pints each. Let's get going.
Pretty sure I've done that to you a couple times.
Yeah, it wasn't so direct, but that's what ended up happening. Now, usually Oba was panic-stricken when it came to actually being in public. Quote, when I first came to the city, I was afraid to board a streetcar because of the conductor. I was afraid to enter the kabuki theater for fear of the usherettes standing along the sides of the red carpeted staircase at the main entrance. I was afraid to go into a restaurant because I was intimidated by the waiters furtively hovering behind me, waiting for my plate to be emptied. Most of all, Sir, you done? Eat your taters, sir.
Sir, is it good? Is it good? Is it good?
Most of all, I dreaded paying a bill. My awkwardness when I handed over the money after buying something did not arise from any stinginess, but from excessive tension, excessive embarrassment, excessive uneasiness and apprehension. My eyes would swim in my head, and the whole world grow dark before me, so that I felt half out of my mind. There was no question of bargaining. Not only did I often forget to pick up my change, but I quite often forgot to take home the things I had purchased. It was quite impossible for me to make my way around Tokyo by myself. I had no choice but to spend whole days at a time lolling about the house. Going back a little bit there, I fucking hated, when working in restaurants and shit, that old joke of like, why are they always asking you if your food is good right when you're taking a bite? And it's like,
That's exactly why they're asking you when you're taking the bite, so they don't have to fucking talk to you. I just assumed it was that and moved on with my life.
It's because you have entered a building the only reason that you have entered this building is to shovel fucking food into your mouth. Mm-hmm. There's at no point am I going to find a better time to ask you. We're not just like waiting on we have 12 other tables that we're supposed to be looking after. We're not going to be hanging out on the sidelines like, okay, he just swallowed. Go.
I mean, no. I feel like the most appropriate time would be after the meal when everybody's sitting back and kicking it, and then like you.
No, that's after the meal. You have to ask them, how is the meal so far? Because if there's an issue,
you could just peep it out, and if you see some just like dude staring down at like raw chicken, you'd be like, oh, why don't I go ask him what's up with that? Like, I don't know, like.
Yeah, in those odd cases, but otherwise it's like...
Well, like, literally, like, I'm hungover as shit, and I've got a Bloody Mary, and I'm just, like, I've got an entire Kentucky Fried Steak rolled up with mashed potatoes like a burrito in my hand, and I'm, like, going on it, like...
Maybe not everyone is quite like me then, because I'll tell you, I've had somebody come by before and was like, sir, how's your pasta? And I'm like, well, I found a bit of plastic, but I'm still eating to find out how much more there is. Like,
sir, I found a hair, but I don't give a shit.
I've never cared about hair in my food, honestly.
It's just kind of a... It's just kind
of... What are you supposed to do?
They put nets on, they do the whole thing, but I mean, dude, it's... I mean, how
gross do you find their hair really is? I mean,
it
honestly...
gets cooked out. I mean, yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, if I'm munching on something and I start gagging and then I like notice something in the side of my mouth and pull on it, and then it's like a long strand of hair, and I just pull it out of my throat.
Just pulling out a fucking like cornrow, just
like just out of the inside of my fucking body, like a fishing hook. Like,
yeah,
that would disgusting. Be terrible.
But... I have done that before though, where I'm just like and I've like taken the hair, and as I'm dragging it out, I feel it. Tooth. I feel it like. Tickling the back of my throat, so I've like half swallowed it already, just like, but it's like, okay, whose fault is that? I mean, it's not hers.
It's like rolled up because your fat ass was eating it too excitedly to put it aside.
Yes, So with Hariki's introduction to alcohol, Oba felt his lifelong anxiety lift. And since that worked so well, Hariki introduced him to a couple of other vices as well, namely cigarettes and prostitutes. And Oba's loosening up was exactly what he needed for ladies to see that whole new confidence, because fuck was he good looking. Well, eventually, Hariki brings Oba to an illegal Marxist group, mostly to pick up chicks. Ugh. And you know what? That worked out
there you
for...
go, that was better.
Yeah.
More efficient.
It actually worked for a hot minute. Like, they were just going to these fucking meetings and picking up just Marxist chicks, just like, hey, you going to the rally later? Yeah? You know, what are you doing after? You know, it's kind of streamlined a bit. It's not too bad. Like, hey, you want to go, let's go print illegal Marxist posters at my place.
Yeah,
just
I mean, the Marxist shit at the beginning makes more sense now. As far as, like, yeah, no, that's a rich kid Marxist.
Mm-hmm.
Like...
Just got a new printing press, and, you know, it's kind of loud, kind of scary. Kind of like me, but, you know.
That explains why he didn't, like, stay on that train either. Like, yeah, you know what I mean? Just, like, yeah.
I mean, because how many people do you think are in that Marxist group? Eventually you've hit on every one of them, and you're just like, all right, this is a dead end. I'll go sit with the anarchist group is up to.
Yeah, never actually cared about this at all. Like, because that's how I do.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But suddenly, Oba's father failed to get reelected to his cushy government job. Now, Oba's allowance was going to disappear in 2 to 3 days' time. What'll he do? Get a job? Move back in with his parents? Fuck no. Sell all your possessions and bum money from your family. Keep drinking, keep smoking. You can't feel the pain if you can't feel anything at all.
Crust punks are stupid. Go on.
But of course, Oba wasn't going to let, you know, something as small as no income stop him from being a shithead. You see, what happened was, instead of doing anything to stop himself from being homeless, his landlord's daughter started taking a shine to him. Rather than being any sort of responsible, he fully moved into her home and let her earn money for him, so she could just run to the store and pick up morphine for him whenever he wanted.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't sound half bad. Oh, and she was married. But the husband was in jail for theft or something minor like that, so it didn't really matter. Well,
was he in jail for assault?
Well, if he's in jail for assault...
for beating the fuck out of any men that looked at me, you know, even slightly like they were coming on to me.
If he's in jail for assault, I'm like, okay, good, we got a good 10 years before this fucking dries out.
I mean,
but
yeah,
like,
no. Now.
It's like, what'd he do? He's just in there because his license expired. Like, fuck, I'm going to need to find a new place
just taking a withdrawal from the bank and getting your ass beat. Like...
Well, one day the landlord's daughter takes Oba to a bar where he starts a new affair with a barmaid. This lady's name was Tsuneko, or so he thinks. He knows it brings him a lot of shame, that he can remember how bad the sushi was at a specific restaurant and shit like that, but that he cannot remember the name of the fucking girl he's kind of responsible for killing. One day he's out drinking with Tsuneko and Hariki is pretending like he's gonna kiss Tsuneko, but he can't bring himself to do it because she looks so dirty and poverty-stricken. It was a really weird kind of thing in there. Like, he was kind of joshing around with them, like, hey, Oba, I'm gonna be kissing on your girl, and like neither one of them protested. Like, they're just like, that's life, you know. And then he like has to get away from it.
Oh, just life, huh? You're not getting off on that, all right?
Yeah, and he's just like, nah, I'm not gonna kiss her. She's far too dirty, you know.
Like, whoa,
and, like, that was how he rolled it back. Level. Yeah. Well, like, so rather than be pissed at the insult, Oba just feels ashamed that he's with Tsuneko. He hates being around her because of this. Now, the final straw for Oba was when he goes out to drink with Tsuneko, and all of a sudden she says, how about you pay this time? The audacity of this bitch!
I mean, I can't... Absolutely not.
No,
absolutely not.
Excuse moi?
No, I expect you to behave like a lady.
Behave like a lady and pay for my drinks.
Have my full tab, pay for my drinks, get me wasted, and then drive me home. Okay?
Like, what are you doing? Shut up and get me morphine. So anyway, Oba dumps out his little coin purse, and all he's got is like 3 pennies, or like 3 yen or something. She's like, is that seriously all you have? And he's like, all right, we should die. Like, that's just what does it for him.
Damn it.
So with a sash Tsuneko borrowed from another hostess, she and Oba tie their hands together and jump into the ocean in the dead of night. At some point, the sash comes undone, and Tsuneko ends up drowning while Oba survives. Though he does end up in the hospital with a damaged lung. And because of his lung, when he's transferred to jail pending an investigation into murder, because, Tsuneko very much did die. Like, that is a thing that happened. He's up all night in his cell coughing. And during the night, he's scratching at a pimple behind his ear, and he ends up with, blood on the sheets. When he's interrogated, the cops think he's been coughing up blood all night, and are like, fuck, this guy's a goner.
Did you just see it was coming from his ear?
No, I guess not. Well, he had, shaggy hair, basically.
Yeah, it's still not going to be anywhere near your mouth. That's weird.
No, they're not watching him all night, but they hear him coughing all night. And then when they, look in the morning, they see, blood on the sheets, and they're just like, fuck.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I get it.
I was picturing him just, bleeding his own pimple out aggressively into,
squeezing it, just,
into his hand, and then waiting until they came by and being like, splash! Onto his chest.
So gross.
Genius.
Holy shit, did this guy just cough out a blackhead?
What is that? We gotta get him out of here, no question.
That's a piece of lung. And one of the cops is just all fucking glum, like, oh, you miss her terribly, don't you? And Oba's just lying through his fucking teeth, not even remembering the girl's name. He's like, yeah. So they just fucking let him go. As a matter of fact, Oba had to visit the district attorney, and he's going in there covering his mouth and coughing and shit, because he knows it'll earn him sympathy like it did with the cops, right? And the DA is just like, is that real? And all of a sudden, Oba remembers Takechi from grade school telling him that he did it on purpose, and Oba has, a little internal panic attack.
As you do.
I mean, fuck. I mean, if you're going into the DA's office, yeah. I mean, you should be having a panic attack anyway.
Especially if he knows you.
Mm-hmm.
Christ. I mean, if he knows you and you're like that.
The narrator then looks at the third photograph. The remaining photograph is the most monstrous of all. It is quite impossible in this one even to guess the age, though the hair seems to be streaked somewhat with gray. It was taken in a corner of an extraordinarily dirty room. You can plainly see in the picture how the wall is crumbling in 3 places. His small hands are held in front of him. This time he is not smiling. There is no expression whatsoever. The picture has a genuinely chilling, foreboding quality, as if it caught him in the act of dying as he sat before the camera, his hands held over a heater. I don't need to be attacked like this. Look at this dirty room. It's the walls falling apart in 3 places. Okay, 3 places, Mr. fucking Moneybags over here.
You understand how fucking expensive rent is now.
The third notebook starts. After he's let go, Oba goes right back to trying to drown himself with alcohol. But of course this only goes so far, and afterwards he stopped going to classes, and he was so occupied with the Marxist group that it no longer became fun, so he stopped attending. Who would have guessed? Eventually they were going to force him to fucking work.
Right.
Eventually Oba's older brother sent him a letter on behalf of his father telling him it was time to grow up. That seems unfair to me. I mean, he's only, what, 25?
Son, I heard the Communist Party told you had to stop being so lazy. It's time.
You know your illegal Marxist group? Your grades have been very, very dour. So Oba doesn't really have anywhere else to go, so he tries going to his friend Hariki for help. And Hariki doesn't really want Oba around. You see, while Oba was off killing himself, Hariki was trying to take his place within the Marxist society. Specifically, he was trying to warm up to one of the higher-ups, that's some hot chick. He's trying to get top communist chick. Top commie chick.
Yeah, no, if you're gonna go, do it. Don't.
And Hariki's got a meeting with her, so Oba needs to get the fuck out. And wouldn't you know it, as Hariki is trying to push Oba out the door, who should they run into but the Marxist chick? And, Oba, do you say? Where do you live? Yeah, I live near there too. Want to walk me home? It's easy to pick up chicks when you're just as hot as he is. He literally didn't even fucking do anything. I mean...
He just existed and just
existed. Ah, man, fuck.
How you doing?
Oh, it's fine. It's just...
Did you pull something?
Just saying he's such a ladies' man, he just existed, and then I had flashback to the fact of how horribly abused he was as a child, and how he tied that string to the fact that other women wanted him, that's all. I was just thinking about that momentarily.
No, you're right. That's rough. Yeah, go ahead and dabble that in there. I was feeling a little bit too comfortable. Thank you. Thank you. Like,
why is this guy killing himself for? He's got all these ladies just lining up.
Oh, just a solid 4 years of hard diddling. Fuck.
Well, for a little while, Oba's actually doing all right. This Marxist chick's got a kid from another guy, but she's a widow, so it's not like the guy's going to show up out of jail unexpectedly. And Oba's kind of getting the hang of being a family man. He's getting cleaned up a bit, stops using morphine. He feels wanted, you know? And then one day he's playing with the kid, and he asks the kid, what do you wish for? And this fucking kid's like, I wish my real dad was here. I mean, he's a kid though, right? I don't think the kid was being a shit. He has feelings he doesn't know how to express. And, you know, I don't think this is necessarily fair on Oba's part here, but he kind of blames the kid like, oh, it was at this point that I realized I was less than a human. I was truly an animal to be put down. And I just think the guy wanted an out, honestly. I think he enjoyed being a barfly. I mean, in the book, it's
pretty fun.
Yeah, it's fun to be a barfly, you know, but like...
I would assume, especially if you're like, you know, a writer.
But it's like everyone knows that there is going to be this point in your life where like at some point you do have to like settle down. That doesn't mean it has to be with a person necessarily, but I mean like in terms of like your excitement level and how much money you're fucking rocking out and shit, you're gonna need to calm down. This seems like a pretty good segue into that at the very least. Maybe you ought to calm down with them, you know?
Just chill. Like, do you feel good right now? Does it feel nice to be...
You know, here's the thing, though, too, is, like, so he's writing the story. It's hard to say that it could be expressed in any other way than how he writes it. But to me, it felt like the kid wasn't saying, I wish my real dad was here instead of you, but it was more like, I wish you could have met my father. And the kid doesn't know how to express it. He's, like, fucking 5, you know? Yeah.
The kid's like 5, he's like, stop banging my mom.
Don't fuck my mom. What do you wish for? I wish you'd stop fucking my mom.
I can't unfuck her, child.
So Oba's out there at bars again. He relapses, starts stealing his old lady's clothes and hawking them for drink money. He's still with the Marxist chick at this point. But he's just like stealing her fucking clothes, and like he brings this up a lot. Like this was a fairly common thing. Was like he would just gather up old clothes or like clothes in general. Like, look, if you have 5 shirts for 5 days of the week, then that's fine. But 6 shirts, I'm gonna go hawk this fucking last shirt that you've got, and like he'd just take it on down to Buffalo Exchange for like drink money. You know,
mm-hmm.
It's not a terrible idea.
No, I've done it many a time.
Oh yeah. Find some good shit out there, but
dude, I still have like, oh god, I don't want to admit this, at like 28, I still barely have like more than 2 days worth of non-work clothing.
Yeah, I know.
Like...
Well, it's like it, especially I don't know how big of a thing it was in other cities out there, but in Portland it is like having fucking, you know, just fucking what do they call them? The clothing stores.
Thrift shops?
Huh? Thrift shops, yeah.
Yeah.
Thrift shops are fucking everywhere, and there's a few choice ones too. Like, if you're real poor, you know, you go on down to Value Village, you get yourself some 10-cent pants. But man, if you want some of that good shit,
hit up that Goodwill.
You go, like, you know, yeah. If you want some of that good shit, man, maybe some Goodwill, but especially Buffalo Exchange has got some pretty good stuff, and it's always like for that area too. Like, if you hit the Buffalo Exchange on Burnside, you can come out there with a full outfit looking like you're living on Burnside. Like, oh, look at this. I found some fucking cowboy boots and a leather jacket.
Whole point.
Yeah, no, it's great. And, like, they actually give you a pretty fair exchange on clothes, too. Like, I've taken Nicole's clothes back, and it's like, as a guy, like, giving them fucking old band shirts and shit, they're just like, we don't need any of this, but I can give you $1.
They started stocking, like, some new stuff.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, no.
Well,
this was years ago, and obviously years ago.
Because I'm like, they need to now because of COVID. Like, I'm not buying any dead people's stuff.
No,
like,
they had started stocking like some new things here and there, mostly just like, you know, t-shirts and shit.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
And some flannels, but like...
I still fucking... So Nicole's always like buying trendy shit and stuff, but she buys clothes up very, very fast. So like, as soon as she's like done with that season's wear, like... if I take it down to Buffalo Exchange, dude, I've made fucking bank off of her clothes. It's like, holy shit, I ought to just start taking some of her clothes for her.
That's the cool thing about the Buffalo Exchange as opposed to Value Village and like Goodwill and shit is like Goodwill you literally just come and then you just dump the dumpster of things that you're gonna throw away. And then they stock them. At Buffalo Exchange, if they're looking at it and they're like, no one wants this.
Yeah. Every time, it's true. Every time
it's more expensive than, like, those places. I'm like, yeah, but I don't have to, like, sift through just this mound of trash to find something.
The 2007 Fun Run. I was hoping to find this shirt.
Oh, boy, Jinkos. Like, what the fuck? Like...
Hey, are these real Dickies?
I'm like, oh, man, it's a flannel. Oh, it's got those weird little... embroidery French things on it, like what the
Yeah, I take my clothes to Goodwill. I take Nicole's clothes to Buffalo Exchange. So, anyways, he's out there hawking his old lady's shit for drink money. But you know what? She doesn't care, and neither does the kid. They fucking love him. They adore this guy. Had absolutely no problem with him acting like a fucking tweaker. The last time Oba saw them, they didn't even know he was there. He was spying on them around the corner, like in their home, like a creep. And they're talking about this pet rabbit they just got and how excited they are to show him. And Oba's just like, I should leave. They look happy. And it's like, they're happy because of you, dickhead. Like, come on.
He's a bit moody.
He is a bit moody.
He's a bit of an edgelord.
The guy who's tried to kill himself 4 times. He's a bit edgy.
Well, yeah, I mean, after the,
Yeah.
I mean, Christ, he's earned a little going easy. Can't just dig into the guy after that, Jordan.
Well, it's weird, though, that he just does not want that kind of lifestyle. Like, very clearly, he does not want it. Like, and I get it. Going to the bar is fucking great. Especially when you're going to go to the bar and everyone recognizes and loves you. That's fantastic. But they were allowing him to have that life anyway. But he just fucking goes for it. He's just like, nah, I'm gonna be the fucking Charles Bukowski of Japan just all my life, It's like, fucking why? Why would anyone want that? Well. So with nowhere to go, no money, Oba just wanders into this bar, sits in front of the hostess, and she's like, hey, and he's like, I left her for you, my lady. And of course it fucking works. Ooh. He's beautiful. She immediately takes him in, and he lives with her above the bar. And he has no more worries. He's drinking sun up to sundown, and he doesn't have to pay a goddamn dime. The only thing he ever needs to leave the bar for is cigarettes across the street. And who should be working there but a sweet, nubile.
Dude, don't do
17-year-old girl named Yoshiko.
Fuck, once again, you can't see his face. It makes it worse. It's rough. I wish you wouldn't do it.
Did it help that I licked my lips to make my mouth moist before I said nubile?
I mean, yeah, it's better than a smack. Like, nubile. I don't fucking...
Nubile. Yeah. I had to put that in there because that's my least favorite word. Nubile has always meant a succulent young girl.
Yeah, that's rough.
It's never ever meant anything good. Like, look at these potatoes. Aren't these nubile as fuck? Like, it's never meant that. It's always gone straight to talking about, like, her nubile breasts, which for some reason always meant not fully developed. I fucking hate it.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I come across
Actually, no. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
I just hate it.
It's not a fun word. Like, anybody complaining about moist is like, you have no idea how much worse.
Also, when else am I supposed to lick my lips, No, there's never seems to be a good time to lick my lips.
I mean, yeah, why do you lick your lips so much, brother?
I
can tell you that's never crossed my mind once. I don't be licking my lips all the time. Like
birthdays, funerals, weddings, just, happy birthday.
Going about. Just rolling over in the morning. Honey.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
It's just... Proceed.
So, pretty quickly, I won't say Oba falls for Yoshiko, because it should be pretty evident at this point that he doesn't actually give a fuck about anybody. But soon Oba and Yoshiko get married anyway. And he's doing alright for a while, but one night he and his buddy Hariki are up on the roof getting drunk. And Hariki's about to crawl back in through the window to go home. And he steps outside, though, real quick. He's like, He comes back out basically a minute later. He's like, hey, buddy, can you help me find my jacket real quick? And so Oba goes inside with Hiriki, and Yoshiko is just downstairs going at it with some guy. Like, I'm pretty sure she knows he's home too. Like, clearly, he had to walk through the house to get up onto the roof. So this puts a little strain on the relationship, and Oba doesn't think he can trust her anymore, because God knows he doesn't fuck around. And he gets up to get a glass of water one night, and he accidentally finds a bunch of sleeping pills, so he's just like, well, here we go. He doesn't die, but he is in a coma for 3 days.
Here we go again.
Oh, shit. He's in a coma for 3 days. He wakes up, and not only is Yoshiko and the doctor there, but so is the barmaid he ran away from. And he tears up, and he's just like, take me away from Yoshiko. Like, this is all her fucking fault.
Clearly.
Yeah. So Oba decides he's got to get away for a little while. Quote, unquote, someplace with no women, he says, because that's his fucking issue. So he goes for a little mancation down at the local hot springs, hops into a pharmacy, and what does he find? Some strange. This is some beautiful, crippled pharmacist who takes care of her paralyzed father-in-law, and for whatever reason, he cannot get enough of her.
Crippled how?
Like, she's a hobbler.
That could mean anything.
She's a hobbler.
What does that hobbler mean?
She's
hobbler, Jordan.
She's on a fucking crutch and she hobbles. They don't say exactly what it was.
It's not hobbling if you're on a crutch. If she's a hobbler, then, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just picturing her, like, knee going.
What do you mean
like,
you don't hobble
right.
when you're on a crutch?
I mean, you don't. It's not a hobble. It's more of a, like, you know, a stilty swing. A hobble is like...
No, you're thinking of somebody with two crutches where you can kind of fucking swing your one foot out there like a child out of swing set, just like, whee!
No.
She's got one crutch.
No, like
she
I'm saying, hobble is like your knee is pointing straight, your right knee is pointing, like, straight to the right, so you've got one
just
that's
got
wonky,
lazy knees.
And you're, like, hobbling back, like, you know.
One knee on me, another around the corner. No, she's just, I think it was like, I can't remember if he expressly says it, but I want to say it was something like polio or something when she was younger. And granted, we are way too far removed to know what the fuck polio does to someone's body at this point. Like, or I would like to think, except for the anti-vax kids, those ones are dying. But still, I guess it makes you a hobbler. So either way, she's like caring for her paralyzed father-in-law, and just for whatever reason, like this seems problematic to get into it with this chick. But for whatever reason, this hits off all of Oba's fucking alarms. He is just hot and heavy for this chick. So also, I'm sure it didn't really matter for him, but she's also owning a pharmacy where, you know, there's barbiturates and sleeping pills and morphine. I'm sure that didn't matter. You know, it was all about her.
I mean, especially if it's a community where he went, where it was like, oh, it's only men.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, like
hey, how's your paralyzed father-in-law looking at his skirt?
That is impressive, though. I mean, if it's a community of only men and one woman, you have to be absolutely top tier.
No, it's not purely a community of no. I think it's just a small town, basically. Like, this is...
It's to get away from women, so he just goes to a
small town where all the women are going to be like, I smell new dick. Like, they're gonna want to fuck him. Like,
but at the same time...
What?
If you're in an environment like that, you better be fucking top tier.
He is top tier. It's unfortunate.
Apparently,
like I said, he's hot.
I'm just saying that proves that, because otherwise,
yeah.
I mean,
It's true.
There's stiff competition there. That's why I tell people not to go to Alaska.
Oh, why? Is that a huge, like...
Not a lot of women in Alaska.
Oh, really?
Apparently, yeah.
You ever feel a bear's butthole, though?
Like the animal, or...
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh. No, not a power bottom. Switching one vice for another, Oba quickly becomes a morphine addict again. Because, shit, she works at a goddamn pharmacy, and of course he's banging the pharmacist, too. Not sure what to do as an addict and a serial philanderer, Oba decides to just hang himself and get it over with. But on the day he would hang himself, Hiriki shows up, supposedly knowing what he's about to do, and commits him to an asylum. Oba knew this branding of madman to the public's eye would mean that he was disqualified from being a real person. In other words, he was so low in society's eyes that he was no longer human. I did it, said the title of the movie.
There you go.
There I am.
Hell yeah, brother.
So Oba's institutionalized for a little while, and while he's there, his older brother comes to visit. He tells him their dad had died, and that he will now be head of the Ozo family. The brother, not Oba. He wants his brother out of the asylum, but not back to Tokyo. He tells Oba not to worry, he'll take care of his debts, but he's going to be sending Oba to live at the coast, away from trouble. Well, when Oba gets there, he realizes it's not quite the coastal living he was expecting to have. He opens the door to a shitty little shack, really run down. His brother basically just sent him to live in a fucking trash can out of the way and away from anyone they know, which further confirms for Oba that he truly is no longer seen as a human being anymore. The family just wants him gone. Now, the narrator, the one, in the very beginning of the story, looking at the 3 notebooks from which this tale derives, says that he is not Oba, and these aren't his journals, but he got them and the photograph from a barmaid in the city. They were sent to her anonymously, with no answer as to whether Oba was alive or dead. And that's how it ends.
All right.
As depressive of a writer as he is, I do highly recommend it. The success of No Longer Human led Osamu Dazai to be commissioned to write a story for a national newspaper. So he started briefly on a story before he stopped all communication with the outside world. This led some people to worry, as No Longer Human seemed a bit too on the nose. It was a little too personal. It was beginning to seem less like an I-novel and more like his last will and testament.
That clearly.
That coupled with the fact that when they asked, so he just nobody had heard from him for a little while. So they asked the national newspaper, hey, have you heard from him? What's his story called anyway? And they're like, oh, it's called Goodbye. All that he gave them was a title.
Huh, weird.
It felt like a pretty big hint that he might try suicide again to them. Then the letters to family and friends started coming in, from both Dazai and Tomie. They were definitely goodbye letters, and Dazai even wrote a letter to his old mentor, Ibuse, the guy who wrote Black Rain. They had drifted apart over the years, and Dazai took the time to call Ibuse an evil man. When the police followed up on inquiries on Tomie and Dazai's whereabouts, there were reports of them getting high on sleeping pills and getting drunk on a 2-day bender before contact with them was lost. On June 13th, 1948, just less than 2 weeks after the release of No Longer Human, the police began a search for the missing writer and his mistress, which eventually led them to a possible crime scene. It was a suspicious picnic spot near a canal that was strange given the heavy rainfall happening at the time. The spot had a couple of glass bottles, a plate, a pair of scissors, and a compact mirror. Also from that spot was tall grass flattened all the way down to the bank of the water. Downstream were found 2 pairs of wooden clogs caught on the bank, but nothing else. 6 days later, on June 19th, 1948, on Osamu Dazai's 39th birthday, Tomie and Dazai's bodies were found less than a mile downstream from the picnic site. Their hands were tied together with a red cord so they wouldn't drift apart, which Dazai blamed for his failure to die on his first drowning attempt.
Oh.
My sources today.
Oh.
No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai, translated by Donald Keene. First Tuttle edition says 1981, but I know it isn't really from 1981 because it has websites listed on the back. The Setting Sun by Osamu Dazai, also translated by Donald Keene. New Directions Publishing Corporation, 25th printing. Schoolgirl by Osamu Dazai. No idea who translated or who printed this book, as I bought it from a sketchy website, and I'm 90% sure it's just mass printed out of a teenager's school book to make money. It's formatted really fucking funky. No Longer Human by Junji Ito, based on translations by yet again Donald Keene, Viz Media LLC, first edition. Absolutely deviates from the novel, but I'm giving it a shout out anyway because this was actually my introduction to Osamu Dazai, and Junji Ito is just always fucking great. And Hashire Mielos, 1992, animated film, Visual 80. And Wikipedia.
All right, well done, brother.
Any final thoughts you got?
No. Nothing apart from what we said. But I'm going to be real with you right now, Jordan. How long have we been doing this? Look at the counter.
It's 98 minutes.
98 minutes.
Yeah.
Sick. Want to go ahead and count those beers over there? Let me know what's going on with that.
Yeah, I mean, you're at the end of your 6-pack there.
Yeah. It's been 98 minutes. Why don't you hit that pause button so I can fucking pee? Please, God. It's been one take.
I think we could sign off. See you later.